Welcome to Transform Ed Consulting, where vision becomes strategy and strategy creates lasting impact. We empower educational leaders through program evaluation, strategic planning, leadership coaching, and data-driven solutions that inspire meaningful change. Our mission is to create opportunities that prepare learners for career success, college readiness, and lifelong achievement. Start your journey toward educational excellence today. Your initial consultation is absolutely free.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Johnson from Transform Ed Consulting, and we have as our guest today, Kelli Ruby. Kelli, tell us, where are you in the world?
Hello, David. I am here in the beautiful Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. What's your temperature today?
Well, we were scooching up to 100 degrees and about 100% humidity.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you know, I'm in San Antonio. I think the forecast for today is 94, 95. But I don't understand this. San Antonio suffers with drought, but there's so much humidity. How could we also be suffering with a drought? I don't get it. I don't get it. Well, let me formally introduce you. Kelli Ruby, Ed.D, is an administrator for Bastrop Independent School District in Texas, and she's living in Austin. She is an educational leader and creator of an MTSS-based attendance framework that helps schools reduce chronic absenteeism and improve student outcomes. She earned a doctorate in educational leadership from George Fox University. Her work has helped increase campus attendance from 90.6% to 94.1%, while reducing chronic absenteeism by 40% through the 4 C's: clarity, communication, consistency, and collaboration. She equips schools and districts with proven strategies and leadership practices to build attendance cultures where every student is seen, supported, and consistently present, as attendance is the foundation for learning. How did you become interested in attendance?
Well, it wasn't my passion to start out with, but as I began my doctoral process and looked for the greatest need serving in a Title I campus, we recognized that attendance after COVID was really abysmal and just impacting all of the things. And so that's what got my heart. And then as I started to do the research and look through all the things, that became the capstone of my doctoral process. And then it has just grown from there.
You know, at one time, Kelli, I was an expert on attendance. I like to think that I still know a few things about increasing attendance. But when I first became an administrator, I was in a school where, when I was hired, the principal said, "We have a problem with attendance." And I said, "I will address that." So tell me, off the top of your head, what's the most important thing about improving attendance?
Partnerships and collaboration, 100%.
With the students and the families, or?
That's right. It's with the students and the families. We often think of attendance in terms of compliance, and especially thinking about in elementary and middle schools. There's those powerful partnerships with the parents to help remove the barriers, and then connecting with those students to make sure that they feel safe and supported in a place where they know they can come to school to learn.
And Kelli, you have a interesting background. Along with being an educator, you're also a pastor.
That's correct. My husband and I are both pastors here in Austin, Texas. That's what brought us here.
And you're getting ready to embark upon an adventure.
That's right. We will be heading to Burundi here in like the end of this week. My husband and I will be going with a small team of people to build some churches over there and do some leadership development. We're really excited about it and equally terrified. I know it's going to be an incredible experience.
Wow, it sounds like a real adventure. Perhaps you'll get to speak afterward and you can tell me what you learned in your adventure.
That's right. I'm going to live to tell.
Well, our topic today is attendance framework. And again, Kelli is an expert on the topic. So where would you like to start?
Well, I want to talk about building those systems that promote strong student attendance and family engagement. You know, when we think about attendance, we think of it is this wicked problem. Researchers call it this wicked problem because there's no solution that's going to fit one size fits all, right? But when we think of attendance in terms of building partnerships that connect the students and the families to the school, that's where the power comes in attendance improvement processes. So those are things that have to be developed over time, right? And I'm sure that you learned that as you built your attendance systems, right?
Well, let me stop you for a minute. One of the things that we learned, and you noticed too, that sometimes parents did not have a good experience with school themselves.
Correct.
And the unfortunate thing is they pass that on to their children. Now, when you encounter a situation like that, how do you address it regarding attendance?
That's a great question. So I'm going to answer that with a story, if that's okay.
Sure.
After I got my doctorate, I just recognized we had so many kids that were chronically absent for so many days of a year, like almost a year's worth in 3 years, right? So I brought some of those families in. They may have come in under duress, and just gave them a overarching picture of what their students' attendance and behavior and academics look like. You could see them with the white knuckles. And one family's just like, white knuckles, what's going to happen here? And then I just asked the question of like, how can we support you, right? In getting your students into the school? What's the barrier and what do you need from us? And there's this huge exhale in that moment when they recognize this is a partnership. Now, sometimes it takes longer than others. So I have had parents who we've gone some back and forth. There's a small percentage that only speak compliance and truancy court. That's all they're going to hear, right? But for the majority of the families, as I've had these meetings, I've had parents cry. I've had parents who say, I can't control my child. He won't come to school. Okay, well, let's bring him in right now. And let's talk about this together and let's put a plan together. So the power in that collaboration with the parent and that partnership together when you're having those conversations is so impactful.
Well, what would you call family engagement? Is that an example of family engagement, or does it go further?
It could be a part of family engagement. Another piece of family engagement is providing tools and barrier removal pieces for them. So one of the things that we did is we built a community fair. We just brought in all of the people from the neighborhood, right? And they loved getting together post-COVID. They're like, I have not seen you in 5 years. And then we brought the parents in, all the parents, not just parents of absent students, right? And we let them connect with all of these resources. So that was another way that we had that family engagement. We also provided workshops for parents. Things like teaching parents how to access their students' attendance, what the rules are, but also how to build healthy habits, and then who you contact when you need help. So those are other pieces of family engagement that give the parents not just the education, but the voice and being able to understand how to make those connections to improve attendance for their child.
Well, you say develop collaborative systems. Systems implies that it goes beyond the school. So what would be included in a collaborative system?
So let's think for a minute, and I'm glad you asked that because that kind of brings me to that second bullet when we think about what the big word that is kind of the catchword now, multi-tiered systems of support. So say that like 3 times fast, I dare you. But we call it MTSS, right? And MTSS is when we take all of the big academic concerns for students or behavioral concerns, and we flesh out these systems. Tier 1 universally, right? Tier 2 for that smaller group, Tier 3 for that really individualized group, and we provide support for them at each step along the way. So researchers have found that we can do the exact same thing when we're addressing attendance as we do for academics and behavior. So researchers like Kearney say, hey, why don't we just do universal Tier 1 supports, right? And then think about how we want to define our Tier 2 supports. What are we going to do for those students who we need to proactively engage because they're going to get to that 90% threshold? And then what are we going to do for those kids who are Tier 3, whether they've missed 10% of the school year or they've missed it repeatedly? And then we can build systems to make sure that there's no student that falls through the gaps. Every student is aligned. We're having conversations with our leadership teams. We're figuring out what they need. Do they need a mentor? They need someone to check in, check out? Do they need a little accountability? Do they need someone to kind of give them a call and say, get out of bed? Like whatever it is, what do they need? So that's what I mean when I talk about systems. And a lot of campuses already have MTSS. So they already have those systems in place. So this is just really folding in that next piece to ensure that every student is getting to school every day so that they can learn.
Now, you sort of implied it, you touched on it, but let's go direct to it. Problem solving. And of course, you know that process of asking why 5 times or 6 times to figure out what the root cause is. So how do you conduct root cause analysis?
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's another wonderful question. And when we started doing that on the campus level and asking ourselves why aren't students attending? And what is it that we can change? Because we can't change our families, we can't change, right? The first thing that we understood was that when we scaled it back, was that we really didn't have comprehensive systems to address absenteeism cohesively for our students. So we had to come back and determine what exactly our systems look like, and then how were those systems communicated. So, moving on to that next bullet, you think about those four C's, that's where that root cause analysis comes into. And that, first of all, that clarity, we need to know what it is that we are planning on doing, right? What our data-based instructional goals are based on whatever had happened last year, if you want to look at your longitudinal data over time, that's where the money is. Look at those kids who've been absent for 2, 3, 4 years. Right? And we want to look at the ever-changing, so you're in Texas, the ever-changing attendance laws. I can't remember how many dozens there were last year, but there were many. And then we think about our own district and the lens that they take. We have to have clarity every year about what that looks like, and then how we're going to flesh that out. And when you put that on the lap of, say, an assistant principal who is probably the person who's in charge of your attendance systems, that's a lot. So one of the tools that, I'll share later is, but I built a framework, I built a little playbook. It's differentiated for those of you that are just starting out. They're like, hey, I just need help, right? I got a checklist for you. I got some sample agendas. I got all the things. And then those of you that want I want the whole multi-tiered system. I want the whole feel. I've got some of that too. I can walk you through that, and that would be great. But going back to what you said, really, we cannot plan for the productivity from parents if we don't know what we expect. So we have to go back and say, what is it that we expect, and how are we communicating that with our families?
Mm-hmm. I am reminded of, in fact, this was fairly recently, like in the last 10 years, as opposed to 30 years. I was responsible for district attendance, and I did a lot of data analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know. There were families, not just a student, there were families with a legacy of absenteeism, brothers, sisters, for years, started out in kindergarten and continued all the way through middle school and high school. What do you do in such cases?
Well, that's why we start young. So, if you are an elementary principal right now, or, you're at the district level and you're thinking, where do I start? You start with your elementary students. Research shows the most profound impact in absenteeism is in those those younger age students, or in your high school students, right? So if you start young, what we're doing and what we're kind of scaling up now at the district level, we meet with our pre-K and kindergarten parents. First couple weeks of school, we talk about what attendance is, why it's important. Yes, they're going to get sick. Yes, they're going to get cooties. That happens. Here's what we do about it, but we need to make sure our kids are in school, and here's what we can do about that. So we start them young, and then we also let our parents know, one, we're in partnership with you, but two, you're accountable. Once you get those kids in school, there's this thing called the compulsory attendance. You got to bring your kids to school. That's according to the state. So let's work together to make sure that happens. So I had a parent meeting that I was telling you about, those parent meetings earlier. I met with a parent once about her student, and he kind of had the checkerboard of his grades, which often happens because there's gaps there, right? But his star scores were off the charts. So I'm like, this he could be amazing, right? Well, older brother was in the room for the meeting because he didn't have all of his shots. And so they had to kick him out of school until he got his shots. So great example of what you're talking about. I was able to tell him, listen, you too, you could be amazing. You need to get yourself in school and create that partnership. And mom, by the end, she was the one that was just in tears when we were talking about, here's the potential. We look at the data for your kiddo. Here's the potential. for what your student could do, for what your child could do if you just invest in the process with us.
I also conducted some qualitative work regarding student absences. And speaking of little kids, kindergarten, and maybe even first grade too, parents would say, it's not so important, it's only kindergarten. In response to that.
That's right. And that actually, in my dissertation, I did some parent-based workshops, attendant-based workshop for parents, right? And then I did the qualitative piece of getting some feedback from them. And that was one of the things they said, that we did not realize how important attendance was. Because research shows that students who miss 1 day of school in those early grades miss 2.5 days of math instruction and 1.5 days of reading instruction and 1.5 days of social emotional learning. They have less grit. They have less self-confidence, right? All the things. So as you present this to parents, it gives them a really great understanding of, oh my goodness, gosh, I really need this. So we do that in our parent meetings holistically. When we meet with kindergarten, pre-K parents, we tell them, but also in those one-on-ones, I just put it in my little slideshow for every parent. Here's what this looks like. We know that you care about your student. And we care about your student. So let's care about your student together, or your child, because they don't have a student, they have children, right? Let's care about your child together, and let's make sure that we're creating that pathway to them, or with them, right? So I think that thinking through those 4 C's, and we think about clarity and communication and making sure that communication is consistent. One of the things that is so helpful is communicating with the students and celebrating the wins. Right? So when we think about tier 1 and our tier 1 incentives, all the fun things, we want to celebrate our students being at school. So one of the things you can do if you're brand new at this is just think about how you can systemically support celebrating students being at school. You can do once a month celebrations. You can do shout outs over the loudspeaker. We had the last 2 weeks of school, we had a competition this year, because those are usually the worst attended, right? Staff versus students attendance. And so every day we get on the announcement, we do a little drum roll, and then we would do the announcement for, who won, staff or students. And the kids were so excited. They would be like, when's the announcement? Who's gonna win? Well, ultimately the staff won, but it was a great just incentive to communicate to the students how important attendance was. It got them really excited about it, and we were the highest in the district for for the last couple of weeks of school. But communication is so important. Communication from parents, when we meet with parents, how often they say, I didn't know, I don't understand, I didn't know that was happening. So making sure that you're really consistently communicating with them is essential.
Well, let's dig deeper into communications.
Yeah.
There are so many types of media one can use for communicating. Which do you find most effective?
Well, it depends on your demographic.
Go on.
And your context. So like we have a portal that we can send things out to parents. We have a certain percentage of our parents at the district level that are going to engage with that portal. We have a certain percentage of our parents who are going to engage in Facebook. So we have social media, right? But we have a lot of younger parents who, I hate to tell you this, but Facebook is for grandma and grandpa now, just me. So we got to grab onto Instagram and those kinds of things to make sure we send things home with students. We know some students it's not ever going to get home with them, with others that we do, but word of mouth also, believe it or not, is very powerful. This year, our goal at the campus level was to decrease our tardies. And once we started cracking down, and it's no fun because parents don't love it, but once we started cracking down, word got out, right? And parents started sending their kids on time because they did not want to be accountable for that, because there's really not a lot of reasons why your student is tardy in elementary school that are acceptable. So that's another, just that word of mouth is really important too. And then, of course, your teachers. Your teachers are your most effective form of communication and connecting with parents. Hey, I noticed that David was out today. Is everything okay?
Yeah.
Hey, I noticed, I'm texting you the attendance clerk text every day. I noticed David was out today.
Yep.
Everything all right? Right? We got you.
How about home visits? What role does home visits play in attendance?
That's a great question. And I don't have a lot of experience with this. Where we are at is very rural. So we have done some home visits. But oftentimes, I think the last time I did one, I remember thinking, I might die here because there was a pack of dogs that came chasing after me. But in certain instances, it's a great way to go in and connect and see what's going on. We oftentimes will send out our truancy officer as a partner of peace, right? To go out and just say, hey, we're concerned about you and we're just checking in to make sure everything is okay. I use the truancy officer sparingly because in certain demographics that can put a barrier right up there. And sometimes that's needed, but sometimes it's not. So, but home visits are another important piece of communication just to check in and make sure that things are all right.
Now, you mentioned certain demographics. What role does demographics play in attendance?
Yeah, that's another wonderful question. And there are lots of studies that talk about how different demographics might impact the attendance rates of students in certain demographics. For example, parents may have to work and students may have to stay home and take care of siblings, right? In certain demographics, kids may be more prone to certain kind of mental health issues, or there might be other factors. There are times where students in certain demographics don't have transportation to get to school. So lots of different factors, that play into that. And there's no way to label or categorize them all. And that's why we go back to that MTSS model. And when we're meeting with parents, we're asking, what's the barrier? And honestly, David, right now, we're living in this time where immigration is really an issue, right? Trying to think about how to partner with our parents. For some of them, just the trauma of thinking about possibilities, right? I'm not being political either way. We're just saying that we're the school, and so we're here to educate your student. So there's all kinds of factors that can impact whether parents are sending their students to school or not. And we are responsible for just being aware of what those are, and then also helping to build that bridge, whatever it is.
Yeah, you reminded me of a couple of stories. I was in a school district where we had to take a boy to the hospital, and we had difficulty getting a parent to come to the hospital. And the light came on. Oh, immigration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I understand in some communities there are groups who have organized themselves to take children to school when the parents are afraid to leave home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the power of community and connection. Right. And so that's what part of why we do the community fair. And that's part of why we do some of these connecting events so parents can connect with each other. We have in our district a lot of newcomers coming in. And so like, how do I connect with other people? How do I trust other people? So just trying to help build some of those connections so they feel like they have a safe space. I will tell you that parents, from my research, and the one thing that came across loud and clear was parents just saying the fact that you are interested in what I have to say, in my perspective, regardless of what comes of it, the fact that someone says I have a voice is so powerful. So when you go back to like what we do with families, that's what we do. We build the bridges by creating relationships and partnerships with our families so they have that safe space for their students to learn.
Kelli, you are so right that we are in a different environment. And I am reminded, I was in a school district. And again, I was addressing attendance for the entire district.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to your first bullet, develop collaborative systems. And you mentioned this earlier, that sometimes parents can't get their children to school because a car broke down and they're not able to afford to repair the car.
Mm-hmm.
So in the effort of developing a collaborative system, we worked with social service agencies in the city to see if there were ways they could have emergency loans or other kinds of ways to support families when they could not afford to repair a car.
I love that. Have you ever read Leadership and Self-Deception?
No.
Oh, it's a wonderful book, and it talks about in the box thinking and out of the box thinking.
Mhm.
And in the box thinking is we have a job to do. Like in this case, we have this compliance piece, we got to get it done. Out of the box thinking is where we value people
Mhm.
in the process. So what you talked about was that out of the box thinking, and that's what this is about, that out of the box thinking where we are valuing the people by figuring out a different way of solving the problem, right?
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of extra work to do, but my goodness, what an incredible experience to be a part of something when you have students. I had a student who we had the parent meeting. I brought him in because parents said they couldn't get him to school. Talked to him, told him, here's what's going to happen if you don't come. So the student was a fifth grader. So when he was not absent, he was tardy. So I finally got him to school. We got him to school. After a couple weeks, he says, oh my goodness, I didn't know you guys served breakfast here.
Oh.
He had been to school since he was in fifth grade and had never been in school in time to see breakfast served.
Wow.
And, he went on to do great things. We've had other wonderful stories, but just thinking about how amazing it is when we are able to connect students back to the learning. Students who don't come because they're afraid.
Yeah.
Don't have the skills to voice, like I don't know how to connect with, right? Students who need a little help with the social interaction. Students who have a lot of medical concerns, and we can provide that connection. So we're scaling this up to our district level now, and just thinking about how I can help other campuses build the next piece of their system. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to touch something quickly. I'm watching the clock. I'd like to touch something very quickly and then move on to our last bullet, which is an important one. What sense does it make to suspend and expel students because of their tardies and absences? I have done it, but what sense does it make? All right, let's take your last bullet.
Well, I'm going to just circle back and say, whose fault is it that the student is late? Whose fault is it? Okay.
Right.
So, and the last bullet is really just talking about the wins, right? So if you're thinking at a district level, hey, why is attendance important? We know the bottom line is important. So in my neck of the woods, when I started this over the past 3 years, we have raised almost $440,000. One campus, 3 years, fumbling my way through to finally building this framework, but now we're scaling at the district level, right? Can you imagine a whole district embedding the MTSS process here, getting this together, right? The funding in itself, especially in Texas, right? Streamlining of the intervention system. So when I first came, and you probably have been in this too, where our MTSS systems are overloaded academically because there are so many kids, there's not enough spaces for them to go in their pull-out groups, their push-in groups. And 95% of our kids who were chronically absent over 3 years were in RTI, were in the intervention piece. And so what we've seen is that we offload that system. Students start to grow academically, like our STAR scores are going up, right? For that and other reasons. The culture of the classrooms, the teachers are no longer saying the kids aren't at school. Why am I teaching? Right? The momentum is growing. There's so many positive impacts, but the most important is that we are making a difference in the lives of our students and their families. If we can get them into school, we are making that impact for the rest of their lives.
Kelli, there are some, I wonder if you came across any of these correlational studies that show the relationship between attendance and performance on standardized tests. Did you come across any research on those?
Yeah, I absolutely did, especially in the lower grades, the lower performance in standardized tests if the students were chronically absent. And then that also transferred to middle and high school if the attendance wasn't captured in general. You had your few anomalies, but for the most part, yes, that's the case. And then it even moved forward from there because then people reported having less satisfaction in their jobs. There are a lot of people in prison who had chronic absenteeism when they were growing up. Now, that's not to say it's a causation for all, the prison pipeline, but absolutely, there are so many impacts based on chronic absenteeism that it's just astounding.
I like that last sentence in your bio. as attendance is the foundation for learning. A
Mhm.
student cannot learn unless he or she is in school.
Right.
Could you expound upon that?
Yes, I can. How long do we have? Well, I just want to bring it back to this, the power of partnerships with parents and students and staff and stakeholders to impact the success of students. It lies in our hands. We are the ones as leaders who have the opportunity to build the bridge, but it has to be intentional, has to be clear. You have to have communication, consistency, and that collaboration, that partnership. That is the key to success, because if we can get our kids back in school, that's where the learning is going to take place.
And you did mention COVID.
Yeah.
I read and I try to keep up to date with various school topics, educational topics, and I know that a lot of students disappeared altogether
Yes.
during COVID, and they never returned to school. That's my point. They never returned to school. How have you addressed that?
Systemically. Yeah, same way that we would address anything else. So we did a lot of outreach to try and find those students. Sometimes they're off the grid. And so that makes it more difficult. I would say that the flip side of that, when a student leaves our campus, we still chase them to figure out and make sure they landed somewhere. We are seeing attendance gains now with COVID. So attendance is starting to kind of circle back from COVID, which is a great thing. But we want to keep our thumb on the pulse at all times to make sure our students are successful.
Oh boy. It should be obvious to you that we can go on and on, but unfortunately we do have a clock. So if we could wrap all this up into a nice, neat package, what would be the takeaway you'd like people to have?
Yeah, so you want to make sure that you're building those partnerships that are clear, they focus on communication, they're consistent, and they're collaborative. And if you need a framework or you need a tool, I have got something for you. So you just reach out to me. My email address is here for you. My LinkedIn address is here on this slide for you. You just reach out to me. I'm piloting all this now because I'm scaling it all up. So there is no charge right now. I will work with you. We will get your students back in school.
And what is the call to action? What do you want people to do besides contact you?
Yeah, be really intentional and make those connections with those families. Don't wait. Start this year. Start right now.
Wow. Thank you very much for being our guest today. And let me review your background. Kelli Ruby, EDD, is an administrator with Bastrop Independent School District in Texas. She's an education leader and a creator of an MTSS-based attendance framework that helps schools reduce chronic absenteeism and improve student outcomes. Thank you for being our guest today. And maybe we'll talk again after you finish your trip to your church building trip.
It sounds good.
It's been fun. Thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Transform Ed Consulting. Explore our services. Subscribe to the Transform Ed Consulting YouTube channel for the latest news and updates.